We are back, ladies, gentlemen, scholars, royalty all throughout the African diaspora. Welcome back to another Black Future Month roundtable discussion. This week, the theme is Black wealth. My name is Devon Truvel, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game, and author of Black Future Month, a visionary plan to reshape our future. And what we've been doing for the past 4 years is just bringing together folks to have discussions, right? To talk about wealth, to talk about health, talk about relationships, and talk about education within our community, but not just in a context of present day, not just in the context of the past, but really gearing towards how do we make intentional, strategic steps towards the future. So today you're gonna have a really fun panel. I think it's fun because I'm a wealth nerd, but a really fun panel on how some individuals have been able to build their own wealth and strategies, recommendations that they have for others that are on that same pathway. If this is your first time engaging with the channel, definitely make sure y'all like and subscribe. If this is your first time being introduced to IMI, Institute of Melanated Innovation, we have two core goals. Number one is to increase access to Black Studies courses and experiences for our K through 12 youth and community members. If you go to imifoundation.com, we have access to free and paid Black history courses on Mansa Musa, the ideology and philosophy of Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, the Black Panthers, Marcus Garvey, the history of Tulsa's Black Wall Street, how to start a business, branding, and so much more. In addition to that, we are also here to serve as a think tank and research center focused on solving the problems within the Black community and improving life for the African diaspora. All right, so that's what we do. And Black Future Month is a small part of that larger vision and mission. Now, today we're gonna welcome our two guests. All right, we got two folks, different sides of the nation, different perspectives, and I think this is gonna make a really good round table. If y'all have any questions, comments, definitely put those inside the comments or inside the live chat. So first, I want to welcome up brother Josiah Greer from the Fire Your Boss team, a deep and good friend of the Black Future Month movement. We appreciate you, King Greer. Welcome back.
Man, glad to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. It's all love, all
All
love.
love, bro, all love. And then we also have Jada from the Greenline Planner, focusing on budgeting and making sure your money is going where it should be going intentionally. Jada, welcome to the platform.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So if we can, I know I did like a little introduction, but I'm sure I didn't do, your story justice. So if y'all don't mind doing a self introduction of yourself and the brands that you represent, but also give folks a sneak peek into your definition of wealth, right? What does wealth mean to you in your own words? We'll have Queen Jada go first.
Hey, y'all. So, my name is Jada, and I'm a budget coach. I started my business about 3 years ago, and my mission is really to help the younger generation start building a foundation with their finances that they can confidently build their lives upon. So, that's reducing stress and having more confidence in actually going towards their future with their finances and feeling like they can actually win at this thing. And my definition of wealth, it would honestly have to be the things that it's the money that you don't spend on materialistic things. It's the money that is put set aside for later times and for the next generation. Wealth is really something that is just not seen. I feel like it's more hidden than it is
Mhm.
apparently like out in the open.
Yeah, right. It's that iceberg, right? You see what's on top of the ocean, but wealth is that 99% of the iceberg that's below the ocean. Okay.
Yes.
I see you. I see you. Welcome. All right, King Greer.
What's going on, everyone? Josiah Greer, part of the FYB Presents Fire Your Boss team. What we try to really encourage people to do is to realize that they're the most important person in their lives. There's nobody more important than you. We teach people to focus on yourself and being the best version of you that you can so that you can kind of make this world a better place. We do that through our weekly Wise Word Wednesdays. We are coming up on year 7 of that, where every single week we provide people with inspirational, motivational quotes. We do motivational speaking in person or online in presentation form, and really just teaching people, about financial literacy to the best of our ability, and just showing people that, the steps of that we're going through that process and learning as well. So what wealth means to me is, my definition is basically something that you're able to leave for the next generation after you, and so a lot of people may be rich, but that doesn't mean that they're wealthy, because you may have a lot of money for yourself, but if you can't leave it for the generations after you, then I don't really consider that wealth. I consider that, rich, and I think that's what makes a huge difference.
Yeah, love it, love it. And I see we have some folks that are already here live. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. Go ahead and say, the city that you're representing and your definition of wealth. What does wealth mean to you? And I'll sprinkle in my own perspective on this. I feel like wealth is when you have so much of anything that you're able to give it to other people, right? So whether it's wisdom, whether it's money, whether it's gold, whether it's a talent, a gift, you're an artist, and you just have so much of a certain um material or a certain presence, a certain essence, you're able to give it to other people freely. And that's why, kind of going off of what you said, Josiah, there's people that are rich, but they keep everything to themselves, right? They have the millions of dollars, or they have so much knowledge, but they're scared to share it for free. Whereas someone who's wealthy, even if they just have $10,000, they feel like they can give 5,000, 7,000 away to them, right? So it's the having so much you're able to give. So backtracking a little bit, I feel like we can't talk about wealth without also talking about living in the struggle, right? And everybody's struggle is different, everybody's experience is different, but I know folks can appreciate the wealth journey and the growth if they're able to see, where you are today in your several different businesses, but also understanding where you started. So I want to ask, it's not a kind of a personal question. You can give whatever example you feel comfortable sharing. But what is a broke experience you've had you are working to never have again, or you're working to never have anyone in your family experience again? And we'll see whoever wants to hop in first. Feel free. I definitely have a story in mind, but we'll see if Josiah or Jada would like to share first.
I guess I can go first. So, it deals more with my parents than it does with myself, but I'm included. So I would say for me, a broke experience that really kind of stuck in my head, and that I'm really working towards to never happen again, or at least for my future children, is we were so broke that we ended up going door to door asking for people,
Mm,
asking people for money. And that really didn't sit well with me, just because I knew that it wasn't necessarily a lack of money coming in, it was a lack of knowing how to manage it.
mm,
And just kind of, I mean, I even had an inheritance from my great grandmother, and my mom, she used it, and it wasn't without, she didn't talk to me about it. So I was going to look for it to make an investment, and I didn't have it just because she was at a point where she had to use it in order to pay bills. So it's just, I seen the repercussions of what not having a foundation with money, especially behaviorally, having that foundation of knowing what to do and how to manage it. I seen that it put us in situations that then I said I will never want to put my kids in that type of situation.
mm,
And I remember being in literally like fifth grade, talking to myself, saying, "Hey, if you don't want your kids to have that same lifestyle, it starts now. Like, get the good grades, go to college, get the good high paying job." That was just like the pathway that I knew. Obviously, there are other pathways that you can take, but I remember having that conversation with myself because I felt so bad. I've seen how it broke up relationships within my family, and it just caused a lot of stress that, to me, I felt like we could live without and be a lot happier without.
yeah. And did that, because you said it wasn't an issue of money coming in, it was the management of money. And I don't think it's a coincidence that now you are a budget expert, right? So how does that experience feed into what you do today?
I mainly teach people about the mentality and their behavior, because I can give them the numbers all day long. I can create a budget for them, but it's really up to them to do the follow through and to be real with themselves about the habits that they are continuing to do with their money that is actually taking them steps back. Even if you go get a higher paying job today, but you are increasing your expenses as your income is increasing, you're going to be in the same spot. So it's about understanding the perspective about what money can really be done. What you can actually do with money, and then also knowing what you need to do with the money in order to avoid being put in the same situation again. So yeah, I really love budgeting because it's like the foundation of everything, especially with building wealth. If you don't know how to manage it, you're gonna lose it.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Josiah, you have a story that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, I got a couple. I think it just depends on which stage of life we're talking about. But I'll go with one that is very common amongst people. I would say in college.
Mm-hmm.
I had just graduated from college, and I was supposed to go work this one job, and things didn't work out. And I remember, I was packing up everything and selling a bunch of things off, and it was me and my bro Reese. He's one of my FYB team members. We were sitting on the floor and we had to like put our money together to buy a bottle of sangria, a 1 gallon bottle, just to be able to. We sitting on the floor, no furniture, literally in the living room, just drinking sangria, trying to figure out what we were gonna do, that night. And for me, it's a humbling experience because here you are at this peak, right? You're at graduating from college and you're supposed to be excited, and now you invested your money, your time, your energy over the past X amount of years, and you're supposed to be at, I'm supposed to be making a lot of money now because I did what I was supposed to do. And yet that's one of the times where I was like financially like at a lowest, like
Mm.
and I had no financial aid coming in that in a couple of months. It was like, no, bro, whatever you have right now is what you have, and that's all it's going to be. So yeah, I would say that's definitely one of the times that I don't ever want to see myself going back to, where we don't have any furniture, we don't have enough for bills, we're scraping up dollars to get a $5 bottle of sangria.
Yeah. Yeah, and what seed was planted in that moment with you and Reese sitting on that floor to now? I think it's been what, 8 years, 9 years, probably since that moment. What are some of the fruits that you're seeing that have been planted from that moment of struggle?
Well, it's this year will be year 10 actually since that happened.
Mm,
And I would say one of the things that was planted for me was that I know I can trust this dude with my life.
mm,
You know what I mean?
mm,
Oftentimes when you hear about people that are successful or people that have, become wealthy, they don't know who they can trust. But for me, when you really see who your friends are when you have nothing that you can benefit for them. When there's nothing that they can gain from being with you, that's a true friend. They have nothing. You're not paying them any money. It's not the social status or nothing like that. And so for me, I learned that like, okay, this is a brother of mine because he didn't have anything to gain, but he was still willing to spend that time with me, still willing to sit on the living room floor. Mind you, he had an apartment. He had his
wow.
own spot, but
Mm.
instead he would rather come chill with me and make sure that I felt the love. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it meant the world.
Wow, love that. Shout out to Reese, man. Shout out to Reese FYB all day. And I have a very similar story to that, where me and the Queen, sophomore year of college, we were on the floor sharing a mattress in a room, sharing a room with our good friend Daniel and Megan, who now we're the godparents of their first child, Davis. And yeah, we were sharing a room. All the furniture that I had gotten literally out of the trash can because I couldn't afford furniture. I had bought some like $20 speakers and subwoofers from the thrift store because I was like, if I'm gonna have anything, I'm gonna have some good music and some good vibes. And I was on EBT at the time, so all the food was EBT. Still, I was throwing down in the kitchen, but there's still that that stigma of going to the grocery store and only being able to pay with my EBT card. And the queen was right there, right? She had her own apartment too. To this day, I don't know why she was on this mattress, and I don't know why we didn't spend more time at her apartment. I think there was like rules, like her roommates didn't really like men inside the apartment or something like that, so they weren't allowing me over there. So we spent a lot of time in my place. But to what you were saying, Josiah, in those moments, I knew this is my ride or die right here, right? She's not here for the money, because clearly there ain't no money right now. All right. She's not here. She's not here for the glamour, the lifestyle, because we're literally on a mattress, no sheets, just a blanket. So seeing where we started sophomore year 2012 to just this month, we were able to literally travel the entire world, go to 4 different international locations, be in oceanfront Airbnbs and hotels, go to Michelin star restaurants. Like, in this 10-year span, we've been able to see those fruits come from the seeds that were in discussions that were planted when we were sharing that room with Daniel and Megan. So for the folks that are listening, watching, like, you're seeing 3 different stories of people who have experienced in one point of their life some sort of struggle, but didn't let that stop them, right? You can still have that vision for wealth, even though your current situation might not be wealth, right? Anything to add on that for folks that are listening, before we move on to another question? Just the mindset of knowing that better days are coming, and knowing that wealth is still in your future, even though it might not be in your present day circumstance.
Yeah, when you were talking, there's a quote. I don't really know who said it. I don't remember, but there's a quote that I always tell myself. Is your current situation is not your final destination, and I had to constantly remind myself of that. And that really just keeps me going, because I know that whatever I'm going through is very temporary. So it makes the temporary times a little easier to get through. And it gets me more excited and more motivated to just keep going on to the next day, because I know that the next day is going to be a little bit better as long as I keep putting my foot forward. So I really do appreciate that. And, the stories that both of y'all are sharing, because they're inspiring to me too, because I'm pretty young. So I know that I still have more days coming.
Oh, she said
I'm
y'all
not
old,
trying to do
Josiah.
that. I'm not trying
She
to do
said
that.
y'all old.
Hey, listen, I'm not mad. 9:30 come, it's my bedtime, so I can't complain.
So I
Oh,
know
that's
that
great.
I'm on the right path,
Oh yeah.
basically.
Oh no, for sure. And I love talking to some of my young bros, like the Markells, Jais, Onas, because they are young in the game, and we're competing against each other, kinda, right? And how we're building wealth and how we're building businesses, but they're 3 years, 4 years younger than me. So even the fact that they're able to compete on any type of level, they're already winning, right? Because they're technically 4 years ahead of where I was when I was 26, just getting started in business. And I think that's what I love about these, informal or formal mentorships. Even the game that Josiah gives me, like, we're competing in a way. We both have businesses, both have podcasts, both have movements that we're trying to do, but at the same time, we're both pouring in to each other's cup while we're running this race. And I think that's what the idea and the sentiment of Black Future Month is how can we as individuals win, but as a community, how can we also come together and win even greater, right? Um, King Greer, anything to add before we switch up the convo?
Yeah, I just want to say I know that you said you don't know why St. Clair chose to be there. I would say because she saw the vision, you know what I mean, and she
Mm,
believed in it, and she believed in you. And to me, that's something that I don't know if people really understand, but I hope that they do see that through you. Um, the fact that she was willing to sit there and be with you in the midst of those times because she understood the value that you had without the
mm,
material, right? Without the ambiance of being in this amazing place, and because she sowed those seeds of love and support, Now she's reaping the benefits years later with you, and you're able to travel the world and, like you said, eat at five-star restaurants. But it took those tough times in the beginning. A lot of times people want to wait until the end, wait until you make it, and then say, hey, I'm here. But she was willing to invest in you. And the thing is, a lot of people don't even realize is that the reason you were able to be where you are is because you had someone willing to believe in you at that time. Because there were times where you probably felt down, you probably felt when you were a sophomore, like, am I even doing what I need to be doing? I don't even got a bed. All I have is a mattress. But because you had that woman sitting in that bed with you, with your roommates, right? She helped you, encourage you to say, like, okay, I can do this because she's with me. So you refuse to give up because you knew you weren't just giving up on yourself, but you was giving up on your girl. So that's why I think she stayed, because she saw that.
Sheesh. Listen, Josiah always be on here doing his thing, dropping heavy gold bars. But yeah, that is a true fact. And I think sometimes I scroll through Instagram and YouTube, and there's so much feminine versus masculine energy, and like, just I don't know, it's just, in my opinion, not healthy. And I think people don't value enough or showcase the stories enough of, I couldn't be where I am today unless I had that woman behind me, or I couldn't be the woman that I am today unless I had that man behind me. And I think there's that duality that's truthfully needed. And even in the company Play Black Wall Street, we would not be the company we are today with the employees that we have today without the mind, the organization that Sinclair has. Right? I'm a talker. I'm a visionary, and I can have that big dream. But I need Sinclair on that other side to be doing all the paperwork side, operation side, paying payroll taxes and all that, so that we can actually function as a business. So, yeah, to people watching, the master key to building wealth is find yourself a good partner. Hello. Master key right there, number one. That's in none of these slides that we're going to cover today, but that's truthfully the master key. Uh, Now I want to shift us a little bit to the next question on, would you consider the African diaspora wealthy? Right? We've been talking about our own experiences, but taking a more macro look at our African diaspora, and considering your own definitions, would you consider the African diaspora wealthy? And whoever wants to hop into the double Dutch conversation first, y'all feel free.
I don't mind starting off. I think I'm going to say yes. I think that the African diaspora is wealthy in 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 history in regards to the perseverance. I think we're wealthy in materials in regards to the land of Africa, right? I think we're wealthy in regards to our ability to overcome. But if you're talking about the wealth in regards to something that we can pass down to the next generation, then, and that part in regards to my definition of
Mm,
wealth, I would say no, because we don't, a lot of the things that we have, we don't own. Even the money that we spend, as a community, we have money, a lot of money. We just don't own the things that we're spending our money on. And so it doesn't create that wealth for us to pass on to the next generation. So in my personal definition, I'm going to say no, but we do have a wealth of knowledge. I mean, like, we look at the
nice.
amount of information that we can pass to each other. Yes, there's a wealth of knowledge. I mean, look at what our history is. I mean, Devon, you and I had the privilege of going to Ghana, last year, and we got to see so much. Dr. Tony Browder talked about the history of, ancient Kemet and all these different things. And so we do have a wealth of information and knowledge, but in regards to what we're passing to each other, it's not there in that sense.
Yeah. I was getting, if y'all don't know Tony Browder, definitely do some research, watch those YouTube channels. It will expand your mind and imagination, just learning about ancient Kemet and astrology. It's dope dude, and scholar. Um, Jada, anything you want to add to that on your perspective on the African diaspora's wealth?
I liked what Josiah said, and kind of just in addition to that, I would say no on the money side of things, mainly because we usually think that being wealthy means that we're going to be able to spend it. So like if you have $1 million, we think you can spend $1 million, but that's not really wealth. That's just being rich. And a lot of times in our community, when we get lump sums of money, our first thing that we think about is going to go buy that car, going to go buy those new shoes, going to go buy that new whatever that just dropped. And it's not actually making us more money. It's not actually expanding our wealth. It's just expanding the things that we have that can be gone like that. So I feel like our perspective on that is not all the way there for a lot of us in our community, and I just feel like we have to get better at that, especially to actually build wealth. We have to understand the actual definition of what wealth is, and instead of replacing it or mistaking it for rich.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. And I want to ask a follow up question to both y'all with that in mind. And you know, my in my perspective, I do think the African diaspora is wealthy. I think we need to do a better job of ownership, though. I feel like historically, you know, ownership hasn't been a centerpiece for the African diaspora, right? We're communal people. There was the chief, there was the king, and the king had ownership, but like the families owning their house, the families owning the gold, like that wasn't necessarily a part of the African culture. It was passing down the knowledge, having the pride of your family name, the pride of your trade, and that was the wealth. And I think we still have that to our core, but because the world is changing, because there's other nations now coming into Africa and taking ownership stake over the land and being able to defend that ownership stake with a military force, now ownership becomes something that is needed in the African diaspora. And I think as soon as we translate our wealth to owning our wealth and owning supply chain, it's gonna be a whole new world. I think it's gonna be a whole new world. But the question that I want to ask, kind of based on what Jada was saying, if y'all were given $1 million, tax free, right? And this is coming up because San Francisco, they have their reparations task force, right? And they're going through what reparations may look like specifically for people that lived in San Francisco from like, I don't want to get the dates completely wrong, but there's a certain time period that you had to live in San Francisco. And if you lived during that time, then you qualify for reparations per year. Now, if y'all were given $1 million tax free, what would y'all do with it? All right. Go. Think about it. Think about it for a second. $1 million, tax free. What would be the strategy that you would implement? And give us the real. Give us the real. We were talking about, you know, how some of us spend our money beforehand, before we got on the podcast or before we got on the Black Future Month discussion. So I think in an ideal world, people want to say, "Oh, I would put, you know, all that $1 million into the S&P 500. It would grow 10%." And yeah, that sounds really good, but realistically, are you really going to invest all million? Right? So who wants to jump in first?
I can say that I would definitely invest about 80% of that.
Okay.
And I would say a large percentage of it, if I could, I would buy, multi-unit properties across
Mm,
America. I think I would buy, places like Chicago, places like Florida. I would, see if I could, mostly places near colleges and universities, because that guarantees every 4 years they're going to there's going to be another group of students who need a place to live. So I would invest close to universities, community colleges, if possible. And I would just spread that money around. I mean, you can find places to purchase for $50,000, $100,000, and so if you could purchase it all cash, then it's straight cash flow, and you can use that. So I would say I would invest about 80% of it. I would definitely trick off about 10% of it on some kicks or some, you know what I'm saying? So you feel me, some
yep.
kicks or something, you feel me, get some clothes, I'm gonna just keep it real. And then I would say the other 10% I would actually purchase jewelry. And not
Mm,
the reason I would purchase that jewelry is not just to floss, but instead I would purchase it like gold. I would purchase a certain amount of gold because it, increases in value. So, a lot of times people, yeah, I see it's crazy now because I walk around and I see a lot of people with like chains on, like young kids, like when I was growing up, and I'm old, right? So now, it's established, it's been established already that I'm old. But I remember when, if you had a chain, it really meant that you worked extremely hard on something to afford that. And now
Mm,
I see it everywhere on everybody. And I'm like, yo, that's great that we've overcome. But then I'm like, I wonder if they actually understand the value of that. And
mm,
so the reason I would purchase the jewelry wouldn't be just so I can floss on people, but it would be just in case if I ever went broke or if I ever needed any instant money, I could always take that jewelry and sell it, you know what I mean, and get some cash in exchange to be able to spend if need be. So I would always have some form of jewelry or tangible exchange item that I could be able to get some wealth or get some money off of. Not
there we go. Love it. And not to harp it on the oldness, but I feel like when you start hitting the folks with the back in my day, Josiah, when you start hitting the folks with
it's
when I
time.
was growing,
It's time. It's time.
it's
I'm
time.
officially that OG.
Yeah, hey, wear it proudly, King. Wear it proudly. That's great. But Jada, your thoughts as the young one in the group, how would you spend your $1 million, Jada?
Mine was actually very similar to Josiah's. I would throw in there travel because I want to see the world. I definitely do, but I would definitely be buying some multi-unit properties. I would like to have a hotel. I think that would be dope and like have a chain. And then another thing would be art pieces because my grandmother, she does that. Like she is a antique dealer, so she deals with a lot of antiques and old things, and she just point things out around her house like this is worth 5,000, this is worth that, and I only spent $5 on it. So I would do a lot of that and a lot of art pieces. And she actually collects a lot of gold too for that specific reason. She's always in my ear, Tatum, buy gold, buy gold. So she's been art like feeding me game, and so I basically know that that's one thing that I definitely want to do. Property is another one. Traveling the world is another one, and then also setting up different funds for my children and just for generational wealth,
Mm,
making sure that that's locked in, because I definitely want to keep it and pass it on and grow it. So it's all of those things. And there's like other little things that like I would spend my money on, obviously like clothes. But for the most part, it would be that, and also like land for myself. And land that I can have my children build their houses on as well. I would want that kind of like all together because I want my family together.
yeah.
So yeah.
There we go. Love it. So we got the investments, we got the gold, we got the art, we got the land, we got the clothes, we got the trips. Very, very holistic use of the funds right there. For me, I don't know if y'all saw the comments, but my queen said we have to travel. So that's mandatory, right? So probably take 10%, which sounds like a lot, but if we go travel, we go do it right. We've never been on a first class flight before, so let's go ahead and have that first class experience and really just be somewhere tucked off for like 2 months, 3 months, just living life, right, and then just scheming. I would probably take another 100 to 200 to buy land, like Jada was saying, like, and my grandma actually had the vision of building a entire family community that everybody can retire on. And she started her own real estate company, Great Circle Realty, and that's the vision that she's kind of been planting in my head for a couple years. Like, Devon, you can do this, you can do this. So if I had the million, I would take a solid 200,000 to build that vision out, and then the other 700,000 I would inject into my business, right, or our business, Play Black Wall Street, so that we have that income on paper and then be able to apply for a business loan and leverage that 700,000 to be able to get 7 million. Right. So now we have 7 million of leverage assets. So now we can go out, buy additional real estate, hire staff, build the school, and do all the other stuff with the power of leverage. Um, so yeah, that's how I would do it. And I think these type of conversations are important because reparation talks are happening, But my fear, y'all, and y'all let me know your potential thoughts on reparations. But my fear is that this money is gonna get injected into the black community, and it's gonna get spent outside of the black community within months. Right. Not everybody is going to do that, obviously. But when we look at the statistics, when we look at how long the black dollar stays within the black community, which is 7 hours, the likelihood that us getting a million and it actually staying in the community and us building up our internal community wealth is not looking good. Right. So I think these type of conversations are important to have, virtually, digitally, in the barbershops, in the salons, on the basketball courts, because I think it is very possible that in the near maybe 10, 15 years, we're going to get a lump sum of cash that we're going to need to make sure we use intentionally, because it will be the last lump sum that we will ever get. Right. Any other thoughts on that just mindset that we need to have with large sums of money, or in case we get reparations, being mentally and fiscally prepared for those reparations?
Yeah, I think yeah, that's one of just the fears, that I have, because and questions really that I have is, it is, if we were awarded these reparations, does that mean that we are no longer eligible for things like diversity, equity, and inclusion? Does that mean
Mm,
that certain jobs are going to be taken away because there's no more catching up that needs to be done according to society? So I have some questions in regards to that. But I definitely think that we would have to be conscious about where we do spend those funds. But like, we already know, because based on the pandemic, right? There was a lot of people that got PPP money, a lot of people that spent their money, and they didn't spend it in the Black community. They didn't spend it
mm,
wisely. It's interesting because, so I live in Sacramento, and there's this area called the Fab 40s in Sacramento. It's really, really, really extremely nice houses. And when I drive by the Fab 40s, nice houses, we're talking like probably the cheapest one is like $900,000,
mm,
right? Like really, really expensive homes. And I drive down that neighborhood, and I see, Toyotas, I see Hondas, Hyundais. But then if I drive down, certain neighborhoods, the urban neighborhoods, our communities, I see Maseratis, I see Mercedes Benzes, you know what I'm saying? And so the question is, like, when we get those reparations, what are we going to spend them on? And I think a
mm.
lot of our issue as a community is the individualism that we have. I love the fact that, I think you said your aunt was trying to do like a land that your family can retire on. Because
Oh
that's
yeah,
actually, when I
that's
was a kid,
grandma. That's
or
grandma. And
grandma, your
grandma
grandma.
grandma listens. So I gotta make
Yeah.
sure she gets her
Okay.
flowers,
Grandma.
because she'll be like,
Grandma. Okay.
baby.
Right. Right. So I love the fact that, grandma is thinking like that, because that's a vision that I had when I was young, that like all of my
Mm,
family would live in one huge plot of land super close to each other. But the problem with our community is that when we have our children and we grow up, we want to leave, and we want to
mm,
go experience elsewhere, which is great for the time being, for temporary, right? But the goal is to come back, right? And to be able to use what you gain from the outside and use that to help your community. But we don't. And Simba, can you get down, please? And,
there it
and we
is.
don't.
Simba.
Yeah, and we don't do that. So I do have questions and concerns in regards to the lump sum. Of course, I'm not going to turn down no free money, but, well, it's not free really. It's actually been earned over
Earned.
time.
Right.
But we definitely need to be cautious of that.
Yeah, that's great. Anything to add to that? Oh, go ahead. She said, "Yep." Unmute. Come on.
Yeah, I'm just nervous that we've been operating in scarcity so long that we're going to continue to bring that scarcity mindset into our new situation, especially if it changes overnight like that. People are not going to be ready for the change, that the mental change that needs to happen. And so I feel like we are going to be in more of a scarcity mindset than a survival mindset. And I feel like survival is a little bit more of like making sure that your future is taken care of. And I feel like scarcity is more like making sure that your right now is taken care of. And so getting caught up in making sure your right now is taken care of, you can totally miss the opportunities that you can take in order to make sure that your future and your kids' futures is taken care of. So that's one of the concerns that I do have. And Josiah, I really liked the concern that you had too about like what does that look like for us in terms of jobs and, you know, just like the inclusion and all that stuff. Like, are they just going to kind of erase that and say, they don't need that anymore? You know, so I low-key feel like that is what the goal is when they're giving that to us. Like, well, we don't want to have to deal with this stuff anymore. So let's just go ahead and shut them up, give them this money and say we did it and put our hands up type of thing. So that definitely is something that I do want to like take more time to even think about on my own time.
Yeah. I definitely think it would be powerful. And I'm not saying that this is something that I'm going to do myself, but I think it'd be powerful if someone can create or an organization can create a budget or plan. Come on, Ms. Jada. For if you receive $1 million in reparations, these are maybe 5 different pathways that you can use your money to make sure you're creating lasting wealth. Right. And why I say 5 is because I think sometimes when you give people one strategy, one plan, it puts them into a box, right? And then it also doesn't account for the different situations, right? A single mom who has 3 kids who gets the $1 million is going to use that money very differently than a 23-year-old who has no responsibilities, no kids, getting the $1 million. So having those maybe 5, 7 different choices and pathways to use, invest, and spend that $1 million, I think will be helpful, along with a series of classes, right? So boom, you just got $1 million. What are the tax ramifications? How do you invest this money? How do you create a trust? And having specific courses that people can go through. So at the end of this week, 3 months, 4 months, whatever it is, they're able to actually make intentional moves with that $1 million. Because I believe I read this somewhere. I'm not remembering the source, but it was saying that if you accept the reparations, you no longer qualify for government aid. And the danger in that is if you're currently living in Section 8, if you're currently, feeding yourself and your family with EBT, CalFresh, and you get the money, you get the $1 million, you spend the $1 million on stuff, you still need to have lasting income to have your house, to have your food, and to do all these things that previously the government was giving you funds for. So again, this isn't everybody within the Black community, right? I don't want to say that everybody is getting the government aid, but this is a concern for some folks that might get the reparations and then no longer have that government assistance. So just wanted to make sure that these funds can last the lifetime, and not just for a moment. Right. Josiah brought up a good point earlier about individualism versus community, right? And that kind of leads us to a really our next question is, does building individual wealth contradict building community wealth? All right, when we think of individual wealth, people making it and then they leave out of their community, they buy their big house, they buy their cars, and sometimes they don't come back to their community. But that's not always the case with individual wealth. But does the concept of building individual wealth, in your opinion, through capitalism, through entrepreneurship, through self-investment, does it contradict our goal of building collective and community wealth?
I would say no, only because like raindrops make up what the sea is, right? So if we all are individually coming together and like building ourselves up individually, then as a collective, we're going to move up. So I feel like you have to help yourself first. So you have to be able to build up your own wealth, and then if your intention is to give back and definitely continue to build the community wealth, I feel like it takes it a step further because you are part of the community. So building your own wealth, I don't think contradicts it. I just think it's the starting point for it, and then you're able to expand on that.
Nice, nice. I've never heard that before. Raindrops make up the sea. I like that. Thank you. I like that. Josiah, something to add to that?
I think I'd have to agree. I think that, and I saw a comment that Sinclair put that said that it can, but it shouldn't. I think that's what she said. But I think that individual wealth is necessary for community wealth. Um, what happens is each individual, right, becomes wealthy, and then they pass that wealth to the community, or they
Mm,
use that wealth to provide for the community. The reason it becomes distant is when that person refuses to then put that wealth or use that wealth in their community. If I go out and I get, if I go and get an education and I never use my education to build up the community, then that's the problem with individual wealth or individual knowledge or individualism in that sense. But if I go out and get an education, and let's say I learn about agriculture, and then I come back and I teach the children in the community about the importance of agriculture, and now
mhm,
they understand it, so they're growing plants and things like that, or growing fruit, or creating their own community garden because of the information. That right there was based from the individualism, right?
mm,
But I took that knowledge and brought it back to the community. So it can, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with a person becoming a doctor and moving out of the hood.
mm,
There's nothing wrong with that. One, because when you have a certain amount of wealth, right, or a certain amount of value, I'm not even just going to use wealth. If you have a certain amount of value and you want to be safe, you want to feel comfortable and safe. And let's be real, in certain neighborhoods, you are a walking target. So I
mm,
understand if that person chooses, based on their value, to leave their community physically, but have you left the community mentally? Right? Can you
mm.
still go back and invest? Maybe it won't be you being a doctor in the neighborhood that anybody can just walk up to if they got a gunshot wound. Okay, maybe that's not the best. But it doesn't mean that you can't go back to your community and host seminars or host workshops about what it took to get into medical school, to help them apply,
Mm.
to be able to help them with tutoring sessions, right? So you can still be an individual and help out your community and build within your community. It just depends on whether or not your mindset is there. I think that's the ultimate difference maker, when we're talking about building the wealth for the community, at least.
Oh yeah, and I think in alignment with what you're saying around mindset, we have Chris Johnson that said building individual and community wealth can be a both and, right? And it's about the culture. So how do we shift? And Dr. Claude Anderson talks about this in his book Powernomics, right? The culture of empowerment. How do we shift the culture to make sure that it's just automatic? If you have a abundance of wealth, if you have abundance of knowledge, of value, it's automatic. You're going to go back to your neighborhood and you're going to give back. What are ways that we can intentionally cultivate that culture? Oh, thinking about it.
I
Thinking
would
about
say
it.
for the school systems, it would be very important to actually do the outreach to bring those people in, because it really starts with what you see, and you're going to be more inclined to replicate what you experience. So I would say definitely the school system should do more of trying to find those types of resources and bringing them in, and setting that
Mhm.
example for people.
I say that's some of the little work that we're doing out here. And I say little because I don't know why. This is a big, impactful work that we're doing out here in LUSD, where we're teaching students financial literacy and how to solve problems in their community through entrepreneurship. So, like week one, they identify problems, whether it's the streets being, having potholes and being cracked up, the police brutality to their neighborhood, whether it's migrant workers not getting paid equitably, to fashion, like fun stuff as well. But and then they build a business model around solving that community problem. And that's something that we just started maybe 2 years ago, and we've been doubling in schools every year so far. But to your point, Jada, like that's right now not something that's widespread across the nation as far as teaching students financial literacy and teaching students how to solve problems in their community. Josiah, I feel like you are with FYB, you and your team are also shifting the culture in fire, like literally in the name, fire your boss. That is a culture shift, that is a mindset shift. So what are some things that you all are doing to shift the culture when it comes to mindset and wealth?
Yeah, it's really just about understanding the importance of yourself. When we talk about firing your boss, we're talking about a mindset change. We're talking about getting rid of the fact that you need someone else to tell you what to do so that you can earn a living. When in reality, all you need is yourself, the information that you want, and take that and apply that. I was watching someone, Kenny Smith. He said extraordinary people are people who do ordinary extra. So
Mm,
the daily things that you're supposed to do, you get better at it, and you get better and you get better, and you learn and you grow. And so what we're teaching people is that you don't need a boss. You are your own boss. You are
mm,
the reason that you're in the position that you are. Because if we start to tell people that the only reason you're in the position that you is because of someone else, then you automatically lose the ability to take control and to change that, because you're
mhm,
always saying it's someone else's fault. So you are your own boss. You're the reason that you're in this position. Now that you understand that, and this is something that even Eric Thomas talks about, now that you understand that you're in this position, how can you change it? What can you
mm,
do to shift it? What can you do to make sure that you're better? And then we also make sure that people understand the importance of giving back, of reaching back and helping someone else, because I wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for a plethora of hands that reached back
mhm,
and helped me in the time of need. Not just
mm.
reaching back and helping because it was convenient for them. In the time of need, they stood in and supported me. So I think that's necessary.
Right, right. I love another quote we had there. You said, "Extraordinary people do ordinary things extra." Right? Just
Yes,
find that
sir.
ordinary thing, whether it's reading, whether it's doing research, whether it's providing services for people, just ordinary stuff, but do it over and over again consistently. So I want to make sure that we give folks some tangible steps as they leave here today. So what is, right, thinking about being your own boss, thinking of you being in control of your own destiny. What is one tangible action or habit that you have incorporated that's helped you start to build wealth? All right, one tangible thing that you started to do, and it could be something that you started last year. It could be something that you started 10 years ago, but you feel like this habit or this action has helped you become the person that you are today.
Um, Something that's simple: life insurance.
Mm,
This is not something that I personally am going to benefit from, but this is something that the next generation in my family absolutely will. So one thing that I can guarantee that will happen with every single person that's ever been born is that they're going to die.
mm,
And if you know for a fact that you're going to die, why not set up a life insurance policy so that when you leave, those that you leave behind are at least financially supported in some way? And
mhm,
so for me, I think, imagine, I have, I I watched my great grandmother, pass, my grandmother passed. Imagine if they had $1 million policy, right? Each of
mm,
them, right? I have 10 siblings. What if they each had $1 million policy?
mm,
Right? Where would our family be 2 generations from now? They'd be literally millionaires at the
yeah.
minimum, right? And so I think that it's important for us to be able to set something up for our future. And we can do that. Each of us has the ability to do that now. And the thing is, if you have children and you start your life insurance policy now, you're talking $20 a month for the rest of their life. They
Mm,
only got to pay $20 a month. That seems like a steal for $1 million payout when you pass, that you know for a fact is going to happen. We don't know when, we don't know
mm.
how, but we know it's going to happen. So I think that, to me, that's something that's been huge in regards to my thought process. It's like, making sure that the generation after me is set up regardless of what happens to me.
Yeah, that's good. And I don't know why. I know for me personally, the longest I thought life insurance was a scam, just because everyone who was selling it just seemed, yeah, a little fishy, right? You seem like you're a little too salesy, right? And then I think the other side of it is people don't like thinking about death, and If everybody in my family knows I have $1 million life insurance policy and they know who my beneficiaries are, what if they start coming for me? I feel like there's that slight trust factor. But like Josiah said, at the end of the day, this is a way to guarantee wealth for the next generation. Invest in life insurance and it's guaranteed. Like we have a $900,000 policy. We didn't quite get the million, Josiah. We couldn't ball out like that. But I have a $900,000 policy. So as soon as I pass away, go on to glory, my kids will be set. They'll be good, right? The queen has $800,000. So if anything happens, God forbid, they're good. So highly encourage y'all take that step. It's not a scam. There may be some life insurance scammers out there, but there are a lot of real legitimate life insurance policies and companies out there for $20, $30 a month. All right. Appreciate you, King Greer. Jada, same question to you. A tangible action step or a habit that has helped you build wealth.
The number one thing was reading. I used to not like
Mm,
reading, but reading definitely opened up my brain to learn from other people. And then once I was able to do that, I was able to then apply it to my life. And so I would pair reading with budgeting because, I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I'm a budget coach. So, that was coming. But I would say budgeting because it really is the foundation of everything. Once you have your finances organized and in order, you have more mental space and mental clarity to actually start thinking about what the next steps are in order to build wealth. It's really just about the organizational factor first, and really just being able to be in the know, because a lot of us are operating
mm,
in the unknown, and that's really scary for everybody. If you don't know where your money is going, you're 9 times out of 10 going to be way more stressed out than you need to be. So start becoming aware of what's going on with your finances, because like y'all said earlier, the more information that you have about something, the more power you have to change it. So you definitely want to make sure that you are learning the ins and outs of what you have right now, in order to take control over the situation and then turn it into wealth.
there it is. Of course, you were gonna say budget, right? That was that was an alley oop for you. Love it. And just like we can count on Jada to say budget, we can count on me to say entrepreneurship. Right? I would say starting the business has been for sure our catalyst to building wealth. It's led us to be able to even have guests on the podcast that teach us about real estate, that teach us about life insurance, that teach us about trust and all these other wealth things. But a lot of these things wouldn't have even gotten started in exposure if we didn't first start our own business and start our own podcast. So I highly recommend every family, and the queen disagrees with me. This is going to be a lifelong debate that we have. But I think every family should have some type of business structure, right? Whether it's an LLC, a nonprofit, a corporation, a family foundation. I think every family should have some type of family structure because it is literally a vehicle for generating value, wealth, or reducing taxes, right? All things that can create wealth for your family. So that's gonna be my tangible action for anybody watching. We got some things in here. We got Chris Johnson who said, paying myself first. And he's been doing that since 1998. Come on. Another back in my day brother on, on the show. We appreciate you, Chris Johnson, King Johnson. And then I have one last question for y'all. All right, or we'll see how it goes. I have one last scheduled question for y'all. But community, if y'all are watching and y'all have questions for our panelists, definitely feel free to put those inside the chat, and we'll see if we can get to those questions before we wrap up. It's already been a really great discussion. Hopefully, y'all have been taking your notes and you have your own action plan moving forward. Right, that is the purpose of these discussions, is not just to get around and talk, but to be able to take action on some of the things that you've been hearing throughout the discussion. So, last question for you: what is missing from the typical wealth conversation? Right, when we typically talk about black wealth, when we talk about securing the bag, when we talk about all these things, from your vantage point, what is something that for some reason isn't a part of the conversation that you feel really needs to be added to the conversation to make sure we can actually build community and individual wealth?
I would say one thing is that the amount of money that you have is not who you are. I really feel like a lot of people attach how much they have to their value as a person. And I really hate it because, our money comes and goes. And so if you are in a down period, then you're really down on yourself and you feel like you aren't anything or you're not worth anything. But that's not true. And kind of even going back to what y'all were saying before, Miss Sinclair, she's seen that you had the value. She didn't attach your monetary state to who you were and what you had the potential to become. And so I feel like a lot of people are looking at wealth and money and the flashy stuff as value, but it truly isn't. It's really about the person that is producing that, and what's really inside of you. So I feel like that is really missing from the conversation of wealth.
Yeah. Thank you. You're more than just the money, right? Love it, Jada. Josiah, anything to add to that?
I think, in my opinion, again, my personal opinion, um, I think what's missing is the downfalls, the
Mm,
struggles.
mm,
Oftentimes, especially in today's society, we see it as, oh, just do this and then this is going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, oh, just practice and then you can get in the NBA, or just buy real estate and then you just, your money's going to double. You know what I mean? And just start a business and then you get your LLC and then you got all the tax breaks and it's going to be great. And it's like, you know, you know what I mean? Like I'm pretty sure, like,
yeah.
Devon, in 5 years they're gonna be like, oh, so I just started a podcast and I'm gonna get 1,000 subscribers. Like, well, it doesn't really work like
Uh,
that. Like every single person that ever became successful had shortcomings. They had downfalls. They took L's. And the L's doesn't necessarily mean losses, it means lessons. They
mm-hmm,
had to learn to be great. And a part of that learning means having to sacrifice some things and having to invest in something that maybe you don't see the benefit until 5, 10 years later. But the question is, are you willing to continue your vision for what
mm,
you saw? You know what I mean? And so I just think that in today's society, especially because of social media and Instagram and YouTube and all these things, oftentimes we only show the success. We only show when we've made it. We don't, like, think about it. We only show like graduation. We only show like our award acceptance speech. We only show the high GPA. Yeah, but how many hours were you spending in the library? How many times did you have to go to sleep on a mattress where you didn't have a
mm,
bed? How many times did you have to eat ramen noodles? How many times, like, the actual struggle of what it took to become what you become? I don't think that's shared enough. I think we only show the highlight, we only show the glamour, we only show the touchdown, but we don't show the practice. We don't show the fact that you might have had a broken rib, or the fact that you were
mm,
in pain, or the fact that you felt like giving up, or the fact that you were at down bottom and your bank account had negative $33 because you had a charge on there. You know what I'm saying? We don't show that part of it. We only show when we've made it. And to me, I think that's an unrealistic perspective to have, from people who are trying to get there.
That was really good. That was really good.
look,
And I
th-
had
th-
a boss. Actually, I was the executive assistant for a company, and he, during the interview, he was like, "Look, Jada, I know that you're a business owner, but I don't want to hear about your successes. I want to hear about your failures. That's what's more interesting
uh,
to me."
mm,
And I was like, wow, I've never actually had somebody ask me about my failures in a way that was interesting instead of like judgmental. And so I think that really did change my perspective as well. And I'm also reading a book right now called The Psychology of Money, and they have a chapter on that about like the tail end events or something like that. And they're basically even bringing up the example of like the venture capitalists and the people that invest in businesses, and they're saying like, hey, like 80% of them fail, 80% of them are
mm,
flops, but it's the 20% that is keeping the entire operation afloat. And so, we have to just realize that we don't make good decisions all the time. 100% of the time it's not going to be that win. And like you said, the failures are what make the successes even more of a success. Especially for people who are going through the struggle. Like, make sure that you celebrate your losses just as much as your wins, because those losses are what are fueling you, and they are the lessons learned. because I would not be here in this position, especially trying to teach people what to do with their money, if I didn't go through some things myself. Like, who would I be, you know? And so I have to appreciate the downtimes that I'm in, because it definitely gives me way more in the future.
Exactly. And I think on the last panel, we brought up just Marvel and us all being kind of Marvel heads, Marvel nerds. And to your point, Jada, every superhero, right? Yeah, yeah. Whoa, shout out to the Marvel nerds out there. Every superhero has their origin story, right? And their origin story is them having to go through the sacrifice, having to go through their dark places, having to sometimes lose a family member to become that Spider-Man, to become that Batman, to become that Wonder Woman. And you can look at all those lessons that you're compiling over the years as your origin story, right? To take those battle scars as prideful bruises as um on your way to becoming that superhero, right? To becoming the person that you're destined to become. So telling the story of me and the queen sleeping on the mattress, obviously during the time wasn't fun. We were not feeling it, and we were complaining a little bit, not that much, honestly. We were still blessed to be where we were, but now to be able to look back on it and contextualize where we were to where we are makes me more prideful of where we are today. And I've been doing kind of this exercise where every 3 months since 2016, I've been keeping track of how much money I'm making every year, my marital status, how many books I have published, YouTube subscribers, real estate investments, my educational accomplishments, and then just like my status on my dream, right? So every 3 months, I get this notification, and then I fill it out, and being able to look back at where when I started, right, when I was making $43,000 right out of college to where I am today, it's like, come on, let's go. I think sometimes you compare yourself to yesterday instead of comparing yourself to 10 years ago and really seeing that full growth of who you are. Yeah, love what y'all are saying. Hopefully this is hidden for some folks. Um, One thing that I think is missing from the wealth conversation, I'll highlight what the queen said first. She said how individual and community wellness ties into wealth, and I will sprinkle a little more on that, queen. Just the concept of mental wealth and your spiritual wealth. I think unfortunately we see very often, some celebrities, some rappers who get money, but and then lose themselves in the process or commit suicide, unfortunately, or do actions that they know will put them at risk in their community, and then they lose their life that way, right? And I think if we put a little bit more emphasis as we are securing the bag to also secure ourselves in that process and heal ourselves and create strong habits, I think we'll be better off holistically with that $1 million, with that 10 million or $1 billion in the future. So that's what I'll add to the gumbo pot. All right. And if you missed that gumbo reference, it's because we've been having gumbo talks all Black Future Month, and I can't wait to have gumbo again. But definitely appreciate y'all for tapping in, and appreciate the audience for participating. There's been a lot of comments, a lot of questions that have come in. We appreciate y'all being engaging in the conversation. So as we wrap up today's Black Future Month panel on wealth, if y'all can give, one last word, wise word to the people, Josiah and Jada. One last wise word for the folks as they are on their wealth journey. We will start with Queen Jada, and then we will end it with the words of King Greer.
I would say to give yourself grace and give yourself space and time to learn, to make mistakes, to celebrate your little wins. This is a journey. It's not a race. It's not an A to B. You're in your lane, and everything is going to happen exactly when it needs to happen. So definitely giving yourself grace through it all, and not beating yourself up for any failures or not being as far along as you thought you were going to be. Definitely set those goals and work hard to achieve them. But I wouldn't think that, you know, your life is over if you don't make it. So definitely give yourself grace, because we all need a little bit of that.
Yeah. Ashe. Thank you very much, Jada. All right. King Greer.
I think I would say I have to reference when I was in sales about a decade ago. Someone had told me, he said, to be successful in this industry, he said, you have to wake up and you have to be willing to go out and you have to be willing to hear 100 no's.
Mm,
And then you go home and you have to be ready to wake up and do it all over again. He
mm,
said, if you're able to do that, you will be successful in this business. And what it taught me was that you can't go in there with the expectation that you're going to get a yes. You go in there with the expectation that I'm going to try my hardest. And if I get a yes, great. But I'm going to try my hardest anyway. And so it's not about how many no's you get, it's about that one yes. It's about the opportunity to be able to create a yes. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're trying to become wealthy, if you're trying to gain wealth, if you're trying to improve yourself, there's going to be a lot of no's.
mm,
And you still have to wake up the next morning, put your clothes on, and go out there and do the same effort that you gave yesterday in order to get that one yes.
mm. There it is. Where can people find you, Josiah, if they want to tap into FYB or tap into your frequencies?
You can find the Fire Your Boss page on Instagram at underscore Fire Your Boss. You can also find me on Instagram at FYB underscore Joe Spider or Joe Spider underscore FYB. I can't remember one of those two, but just know if you use the hashtag Wise Word Wednesdays, I promise you, you will find some of our content out there. We got almost 7 years worth of content, so we're excited, and I just appreciate y'all having us.
That's a fact. Y'all definitely find you can scroll for all day, all Father's Day. You can just be scrolling on Wild Word Wednesdays and get that positive energy. Appreciate it. Jada, likewise to you. Where can people find you if they can tap into your frequencies and your budget expertise?
I'm on Instagram at Greenline Planner. It's green like the color green, line like a number line, planner like a budget planner. I like to just say that. And then also on TikTok, it's the same thing, Greenline Planner, but they are underscores in between each word. And also my website at www.greenlineplanner.com.
There you go. Consistent branding. Green Line Planner everywhere. You can find her. Make sure y'all tap in. We got our two budget planners that we're going to be using soon to make sure we take our budget and our money management to the next level. So y'all tap in. But Josiah, Jada, we appreciate you again. Everybody listening, watching, we appreciate y'all for tapping in this week for the Black Future Month Wealth Roundtable. Next week, we have our final roundtable on love and relationships. Right. Something I said is finding a good partner, I think, is the master key to wealth and happiness. So we're going to talk about that, but also what are the different roles within the relationship? How do you make sure you are balancing entrepreneurship, your 9 to 5, and your responsibilities inside the household and more? So make sure y'all tap in next week. Same place. We'll see y'all there. All right. Cool. Appreciate y'all. Have a great weekend. Peace.